To me, to live a bountiful life is to be able to avoid focusing on money and using money for what it's there for, what its purpose is, how it's integrated in society, but not let that govern your life, and instead focus your life on finding ways to bring other people happiness. I'm a big believer in if you try to focus your life in bringing yourself happiness, then you won't get there because you'll constantly be searching for, I've achieved this, I don't feel happy. I've achieved this, I don't feel happy. I've achieved that, I don't feel happy. So instead, focus on making other people happy, serving other people, and you will wake up and realize that you are happy.
Welcome to the Bountiful Podcast, where we explore what it means to live a bountiful life. Today, we're joined by Adam Wardel, an accomplished Chief Legal Officer, Board Director, husband, and father. Adam has built an impressive career in top in-house legal roles, all while navigating the challenges of family life. In this episode, we'll delve into his career journey, his approach to balancing professional responsibilities with the demands of being a parent and a partner, and how he finds joy and fulfillment in both. We'll also explore his personal insights on living a bountiful life, the lessons he's learned about parenting, leadership, and the importance of prioritizing what truly matters along the way. Adam, welcome to the Bountiful Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here.
It's so nice to meet you finally after years of writing about you.
Well, after years of virtual conversations, yeah.
Can you share a little bit about your upbringing and background?
So I am very proud to talk about how I was raised by a single mother for the vast majority of my life. So I was raised in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is such a unique place, such a bizarre place, but it is, and it provides a really interesting backdrop to grow up. And I have this really great story of myself when I was little, riding my bicycle into the Tropicana Hotel, and the people there knowing who I was, knowing what my name was, didn't care at all that I was there. This is before there was laws or rules. And then just riding my bike back home at the end of the day. And I really love it. I had a mother who sacrificed everything to try to give me an advantage that she didn't have. And so I think my background is more of a little bit, I was always told you can be what you want to be, you can do what you want to do, you're gonna have obstacles to overcome, and then when you get through those obstacles, you can do whatever you want. That was kind of the way I was raised.
Love that. And then how did you end up in Salt Lake City where we are today?
Right. Job, career. I mean, just nothing more fascinating than that. I had ties to Utah from university. Then I went to law school in California, and I was trying to find a life for myself, So I got a job with a division of Credit Suisse Bank. They actually do have one here in Utah that nobody ever knows about or talks about. It's kind of secret, but it was a fascinating way to learn about what not to do. I learned an enormous amount of what not to do.
Was that the bank's fault, or was that just like something else?
It was the bank culture fault. How about that?
Yeah.
But I think the people there kind of took it and ran with it. So.
Then why did you become a lawyer?
I had a very different vision for my life when I was younger. So when I was in university, I thought what I was going to do, I was going to join the State Department, be a civil servant, and move myself out of the U.S. and serve the people there. That didn't happen for various reasons, and it doesn't matter. One day I was sitting around talking to someone, and they said to me, you know, Adam, you have this really good way of arguing with somebody that doesn't make it feel like you're arguing with them. You should be a lawyer. I said, oh, okay, law school, sure. And I went and researched it like you're supposed to do. Realized I think it would be enjoyable. So then that was what it was. I think they prodded me in the right direction. So.
And you're not a miserable lawyer, so
no,
I mean, how did that happen?
By acknowledging that to be a lawyer, you must have a certain sense of self-deprivation and misery that you just hold on to and let it be a part of you. Okay. and then just if you embrace it as opposed to trying to fight it, then it'll be much easier to enjoy your career, much easier, because it is part of it.
So we digress slightly, but I think it's useful for the background of conversation.
Okay.
So we met when I was running an in-house legal community and found you on the internet.
Right.
That community was called InView, and it was by a company called LawView, and we wanted to help in-house lawyers learn, connect, and share.
Yes.
A lot of law is focused on private practice.
Yes, and not connecting and not sharing. That's right.
And actually being quite adversarial.
Yes.
Especially in the US.
Especially in the US. Right, yes.
And so that's what our mission was. And so we had a champions program, and we invited you to be a champion. And so that's how my joke about writing about you for years and years. You shared your expertise with us so that we could learn from you and help other in-house lawyers, love their career,
right, and
progress, yada, yada, yada.
Love themselves.
Yeah.
Love who they are.
Yeah.
It's a big part of it.
So just for the purpose of this, if there is a lawyer listening,
okay,
can we just, it's my dream to be like, hey, private practice is not the only option. So
That's
can
right.
you talk a little bit about
That's right.
why you went in-house and what the difference is, so that if someone is like, oh, I'm on the out, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore, there might be hope for them.
There is, okay, I've changed my answer to this over the years. My answer now is, if you enjoy watching somebody squirm, or if you enjoy that kind of, I'm going to win this argument, I'm going to be victorious, then I think you'll do well in a law firm environment. But that's probably a small percentage of people in my profession. Yeah. What I love and what I challenge people to think about is, do you love to see something grow? Do you want to be a part of seeing something grow, being a positive impact on something grow? If you do, then there's a lot more you can do out there. And so I learned very, very quickly from talking and from learning from two amazing friends of mine that watching things grow and being a part of that growth is so much more satisfying. And so my philosophy to being an attorney, which is my career in general, is the answer is always yes. We should just be proactive. We'll get through this. I just have this mentality of, no, we're not here to be combative. We're not here to say no. We're not here to get in the way. And if you can take that and watch something grow, you will really love being in-house. You'll love being an entrepreneur, really. It's not even being in-house. It's about it's about being part of the growth of the company. I think they'll love, just because you have a legal background doesn't mean you can't do it. So
we're here on the Bountiful Podcast. So what does it mean to you to live a bountiful life?
So I'm going to start by saying that I live in the city of Bountiful.
I did not know that. I do know it exists though, because I was looking on the map and I was like, maybe I should go to Bountiful because that's kind of fun.
Yeah, and I do live there. I live on the edge of it.
Amazing.
And so I thought you'd find that just, why not, right? But to me, to live a bountiful life is to be able to avoid focusing on money and using money for what it's there for, what its purpose is, how it's integrated in society, but not let that govern your life, and instead focus your life on finding ways to bring other people happiness. I'm a big believer in, if you try to focus your life in bringing yourself happiness, then you won't get there, because you'll constantly be searching for why I've achieved this, I don't feel happy. I've achieved this, I don't feel happy. I've achieved that, I don't feel happy. So instead, focus on making other people happy, serving other people, and you will wake up and realize that you are happy. So that's what I've tried to do. I've not always succeeded, but I've tried.
Life of service, hey?
Yes.
Do you have a worldview, or how do you see the world?
My worldview has gone down in the past few years. So having children has brought my worldview down.
Yeah.
And I think I don't want to be negative when I say that, but I think that my worldview is that we've done a really good job of messing up and making poor decisions recently. And it's not the end. We have the ability to
you mean
fix
as
it.
A society?
As a society, as a world. We have the ability to fix it, but we've made some poor decisions recently. So my view has kind of changed to, boy, it would be really nice if we could take a step back and say, yeah, we've made some mistakes, we've chosen some things wrong. Let's stop. Let's do something different. So that's my worldview. I think there's a lot of hope in that. I hope people hear the hope in that sentence, but right now we're not.
What is one thing the people listening to this, what is one thing they could do for us to do better?
Patience is one thing that I'm working on, and I think that if we all had the ability to just be a little bit more patient, the point of life is to struggle, and it just is. There's no other way to say it. The point of life is to struggle, learn, grow, and then, like I said, serve.
Struggle some more.
Serve and try to help other people going through the struggle. And I'm sorry, but I think that's where you find the joy. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. When you stop trying so hard and just embracing the way it is and finding joy and happiness in the way it is, that's when you're going to really, really have joy. So it's okay. Life is about work. It's about a little struggle. It's about having to lift yourself up a little bit. But boy, you're going to be so much happier.
And how do you see yourself?
I would say when I think about myself, first thing that when you allowed me to just kind of say the first thing that came to mind, now that, right, okay. First thing that came to mind was work in progress. And I think when I think about myself, I think I have an enormous potential that I have not achieved. And I would like to get there. And I have a spouse, a partner who believes in me and who honestly thinks that I can do anything. And so now I have to try to live up to that expectation, I think. So.
Do you know what the parts of you that are a work in progress, or are you still like trying to figure that out?
No, so patience, I mentioned it. I mentioned patience, and that's a big one. I think the other work in progress is I am trying to learn how to be the father that my children need, not the father that I want them to need, if that makes sense. Because that is not true. That was a lie. So I have to change that perspective a little bit. So I'm working on that. And then from a career perspective, I'm working on feeling confident in my own entrepreneurism. And I quite truthfully don't feel confident in it, and I want to. So those are the things I'm working on about myself.
One thing I've learned about this podcast so far is that we did a contribution episode, which is kind of like servitude, right?
Okay.
And confidence can come from serving others.
From serving others.
Yeah. One of the things we sort of stumbled upon, I was doing this episode with a psychologist, kind of an expert in contribution and purpose. And I was like, we were talking about the science of contributing to others and then the feelings you get of like belonging to something bigger than you. And then I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting, because if we all want belonging, but then we're more lonely than ever, you can create your own belonging via contribution and by contributing
into something. That's right.
You actually build your confidence.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I guess long story short, you like to contribute to others that can build the confidence
that I might be missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting point. If I could, maybe what I should focus in on is contributing more through my entrepreneurism and seeing if that doesn't help with the confidence side of it. Interesting. Okay. All right. I'm willing to give that some thought.
Good job. What advice would you give your 25-year-old self, and where were you when you were 25?
So at 25, I was at university. All right. So, but getting towards the end of university. So that meant at 25 years old, I would have gone back and said, everything that you think you're going to do, you are going to do. So good job, but you will not achieve any of it the way you think you're going to do it. Okay, so it's almost as if 50% of the equation you got right, and that's great. But the other 50%, you were dead wrong. So if I had to go back to 25, I would say everything that you know about relationships is wrong, but you are in the middle of building some of the best, most meaningful relationships of your life. but everything that you know about is wrong. And if you're thinking about your career, you're right. You are going to be an attorney. Look at you. You are. But everything you think about what that means is wrong. So I would sit down with my 25-year-old self and give myself a little bit more freedom to ignore the preconceptions and these ideas that people are spouting off at you, and just saying, no, there is a different way to do it. So I would that's what I would do.
It's almost more like there's a will, there's a way, rather than this is the right way to do it.
That's right. And I think a lot of times people try to be helpful, and they try to say, you're looking for, you're looking for a spouse, you're looking for a career. That's a really sensitive time, because you're trying to develop who you are and gain these meaningful relationships in life. But they don't give you the freedom to just say, well, actually, you don't have to do it that way. And there's a lot of people who are very happy doing it a different way. And that was never said to me. That was never, ever said to me.
Do you have just a deep dive on that? Do you have any thoughts on just wayfinding can be incredibly scary. How do you think you would have managed that?
Honestly, it didn't scare me.
Okay.
What was helpful to me, and I was pushing myself out into the world at 19 with no support, and sink or swim. So by 25, that kind of stuff just didn't bother me anymore. So I am a big believer, and I will do this with my children, and my wife agrees. We're going to push them out the door. We're just, hey, there's a world out there. It's okay. You will survive. You will figure it out. People are great. You will make it.
I mean, your 8-year-old is already trying to navigate the airport to Paris by himself.
Yes,
so.
he is convinced that he can do that, and maybe he can. Maybe it's like I said. Maybe it's other people I'm not quite trusting of as much as I am him. But he's not. I'm not worried about him. He'll want to leave as soon as we allow him to go. So as soon as we allow him to get out the door, he'll go.
So you split your time between Salt Lake City and Paris. I mean, that sounds bountiful. That's like the dream. Can you tell me about how that came to be?
Yes, so my wife is originally from France. Southern France is where she claims to have grown up. They moved around quite a bit, but she kind of claims Southern France is where she developed. So when we were dating and when we were married, I decided, and then I brought this to her to see what she would think. I decided that it would be a good idea to not abandon her culture and her heritage, her roots in life, and for me to learn about it. So I said, okay, we need to spend time there so that I can understand more about you and learn more about it. And I love traveling, I love going around the world, so I wasn't afraid of it. And so I had a job where I could easily work remotely, and I could easily work in the office. So I went to my employer and I said, I have this crazy idea. Can I just spend 1 month in France? 1 month. That's all I'm asking. I know it's a lot. I know I'm being crazy. Can I just spend 1 month? And he looked at me and he said, yeah, I don't really care. I'd rather talk about something else besides your plans. And so I went home and presented the idea, and okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna actually go out into the world and see how we survive. And when I came back a month later, I remember very vividly that I walked into the office. My boss asked to see me immediately. And I thought to myself, oh, well, that didn't go well. Yeah. It didn't go well. So change of plans, right? We're gonna change up our life. I sit down in his office and he just hammers me with all sorts of things that just on his mind. He's just super stressed out. And I said, is that it? Is that all you want to talk about? Yeah, that's it. Oh, all right. Well, I'll get going. And I I remember it was a few hours later, someone said, "Hey, Adam, welcome back. It's great to see you." And my boss heard it, and he said, "Oh, that's right, you were gone." Yeah, I was gone for a month. Apparently, nobody cared. So that was humbling because nobody cared, but at the same time, ever since then, we've realized that you can just pick up and leave. Yeah. There are a lot of people who look at us like we're crazy. What do you do? Go grocery shopping, and clean the house.
Normal stuff.
Right. Our kids have stuff and we have stuff, and it just, we just do things. I think sometimes people feel like the world is unattainable, but it's the same price to live there as it is here if you just want to go buy groceries. And
I sort of wonder if we get a little bit lost in our own self-importance sometimes, where we're like, oh, we must be in the office, like it matters.
Right.
I can't possibly leave.
And I can't possibly leave X or Y. Yeah. Maybe that could be family. Yeah. It could be the office, right? It could, no, but I promise you that nobody's going to miss you. So
the one thing I'll say on this is because I feel like I live my life by a bit of a thing of like, well, just ask.
And
like
if
worst case scenario, they say no. They don't reply.
And you're nowhere from where you were right now.
And so when I was younger, I wanted a remote job before it was cool.
Yeah, right. So you were visionary.
Yeah. And something like that. Or it was just marching to the beat of my own drum. And I asked this guy for an internship. Okay. And he was like, sure. You want to work for free? Great. And I was like, there's a condition. I said, if I do a great job,
yes,
knowing that I would, you have to hire me.
Right.
And he was like, that sounds reasonable. And then I said, but you need to hire me remotely. And he was like, okay, interesting. Why? I was like, well, I want to travel around the world. I want to understand the world.
Okay.
I want to do work.
Okay.
And I'm positive that I could make an impact for your company without being here.
Wherever I am. Yeah, it doesn't matter where I am. Yeah.
And he was like, let me think about the last part.
Okay.
And so then I did a great job. I learned a lot. It was like search engine optimization, social media marketing,
all
then
right.
started writing blogs for them, kind of just like shadowed all their people, learned as much as I could. A month in, they were like, oh, you're really adding value. And I was like, yeah, I know. Because I'd been working for like 10 years at this point. Like, sure.
That's a while.
I was pretty young. Like, I started working when I was 13. So I wasn't just like a fresh person into a job. Like, I knew how to like function in an office environment, deal with like human beings, like answer emails, learn, like use a calendar. Like, it was not my first, I was young. I was like 20.
Okay.
But I'd been working for a long time. And so then I left, packed up all my stuff into a 30-liter backpack. And I was like, okay, I'm off now.
Yeah, this is it, I'm going. Yeah.
And he was like, oh, okay, I guess you can have a job. And I was like, fantastic. It wasn't very much money, right? It was like $200 a week to write some blogs for them or something. But America was cheap then.
So you could do it back then.
Asia was cheap then. Like my apartment in Thailand was $500 a month. Right. And I'd saved a bit of money. I was like, okay, I've got my savings, and then I had another part-time job that also paid me $200 a week. So I had $400 a week coming in, and my Airbnbs in Asia were $11 a night.
Okay.
So I was like, this is fantastic.
Okay.
And so that was my story. But I've always kind of gone back and be like, the only reason why you got that was because you asked.
Yes.
And it's like, the only reason why I'm in Utah is because I reached out to people and asked them to do interviews.
And why not?
Exactly.
There's no reason not to come. Yeah.
And they were like, sure, it's a bit weird. Like, you're from New Zealand and now we're hosting you in, the Mental Health Institute down the road, but fabulous, welcome.
We are so much more similar than we want to believe.
Yeah.
And the world is just not as scary as we want to make it out to be. So.
Okay, so this is all well and good, but what like, you actually have a challenging job.
Okay.
My one was like maybe not so challenging back then, because I was starting out. Like, you actually, were, a lawyer and in charge of a lot of stuff for the business.
Right, okay.
If someone has a big job and they also were like, yeah, I want to go work remotely for a month.
Yes.
How did you actually do the work, make sure you were present, make sure you were there when they needed you, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay. Number one, refundable plane ticket.
Okay.
Number one, you have to be able to leave immediately.
Okay.
And you have to let yourself know that you have your own suitcase, your own plane ticket, and you will go. And you will leave your family. You will. That's number one. And you have to go in with that mindset. You may not be there more than 48 hours. Too bad.
So you're like, I'm on call.
I'm on call.
Is what it is.
That's where you're at. Okay, number two, you have to work at night. That's okay. That's all right. You work at night. Yeah. And you tell your family that, you tell your colleagues that. So for example, I have colleagues in London when I live in France, but I'm not working during the day, even though they are working, even though we have lined our clock. That's not when I'm working. I work at 4 o'clock to 1 a.m., right? Boundaries. So that's number two. You pick it and you stick to it.
And communication, I guess.
Well, but that's long before I go, this is communicated, right? Okay, number three, this is the secret sauce to all of it, is everywhere in the world is 75% the same to everywhere else in the world. But the 25% is what you have to be patient. Yes, there's the internet, there's electricity.
There's a way of getting around.
Do you see what I'm trying? There's transportation. This 75% is identical. But there is 25% that will not be the same wherever you choose to go. And you just have to understand going into it that whatever that 25% is, you will learn it and you will find a solution to it. Those are the three things to get through. And you can go.
I call that kind of like the blueprint.
Okay.
So when I used to travel around the world by myself, infrastructure maybe not great in some places. Not as accessible as it is now. I would have a blueprint. And I was like, okay, the things you need is you need fly in, you need to get somewhere.
That's right.
You need a taxi or a bus or a whatever. How do you do that?
How do you do it?
You need somewhere to stay that you can find.
Yeah.
At nighttime sometimes.
When you're not familiar with where you are. That's right.
So not an obscure Airbnb in Vietnam.
No. It needs to be someplace that you can get to. Yeah.
Learned that one the hard way. Let's just say that. And then food.
Okay.
And I'm a big fan of a gym.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my blueprint is like, okay, if I've got a routine and I'm a thriving individual, I need my blueprint and everything else is at the margins. Obviously, the internet is really important and power.
Well, it is. Yes. So there are places that you have to check off your list because you can't get it.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's acknowledge that. But yeah, I have a gym in France. It's true. It's true, right? I have.
So the blueprint is pretty standard, and then the minutia or the internet speed. You might have the internet, but the speed might not be.
And that's the other thing too, is you might, for example, you might choose a place that has rolling blackouts. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I have those at home, so.
Oh, well, okay, right. So yes, so you do, right? And so you might choose some place that, for example, the food might be a little bit different than what you're used to, and how you prepare and cook the food and how available the food is, that kind of stuff. Like you just kind of have to find that 25% and figure it out.
That's great. So basically, long story short, if you want to have a different life or you feel like it could work for you, just ask and then figure out the parameters in which you will be able to do that, where you can both sustain your job.
Yes.
And make the people who you have to work with feel comfortable with this decision.
Feel comfortable with it, because it goes back to service, but this is service you're paid for. But it goes back to service where you have to keep other people in mind. And then you will benefit in the end. You will feel benefit in the end, but you have to keep them in mind. So,
last question on this is, like we talked before, I've worked in a few jobs where it was hours over outcomes. They're like, you're a good employee when you spend 40 hours sitting in your chair. Okay. You work your 8 hours, regardless if you do like the work of 3 people in whatever hours you want, or you're incredibly efficient, blah, blah, blah. Did you just have fantastic employers that were open-minded and that weren't measuring your success by the amount of time you spent in your chair? And I say that slightly facetiously, sorry, but...
No, but I understand, yeah. No, I did, yes. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. So once I was able to really embrace the culture of entrepreneurism, startup, whatever you want to call it, there's all sorts of buzzwords for it. But yeah, everybody there just has that kind of flexibility mentality anyway, so.
They're like, you're paid to do a job, just do it.
You're paid to do a job. Yeah. Are you doing it? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because that's the question that you really get asked. Are you in fact doing your job? Yeah. They don't necessarily care where you are, but are you doing it? So. And
then obviously you mitigate the risk factors by, to your boss being like, I'll be right back here first sign of trouble. Or
that's exactly right. Me. Yeah, no, exactly.
And so they're like, oh, okay. You're not unreachable.
No, I'm not unreachable. And I'll be honest with you, I've never chosen to go somewhere that I could not access an airport or, some type of quick way to, it's true. I've purposely never chosen that, so.
What more do you think your employers or clients have gotten out of you from allowing you to live how you want to live?
Oh, this is an easy one. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is an easy one. So, one thing that I will preach until I am probably dead is that if you want to be a successful, and I'm going to say entrepreneur, but that's not what I mean. I mean the person who is in charge of the business growth for the company. If you want to be successful at that, you cannot hide in one country. The world's too global, and expectations of your shareholders, investors, whatever it is, they expect you to not be afraid of the world.
Yeah.
So whether that means you have to learn how to take your product, bring the product in, send the product out, send your people out, bring your people, it doesn't matter. Whatever that is, you can't be afraid of it. So what's this done for me is it's made me the type of general counsel that can expand your business. I mean, I think I'm pretty close to 20 countries right now on my list. So it's given them the opportunity for me to say, not only do I understand cultures, business cultures, but I understand processes and what it's going to take and how much we're going to get into and who to talk to. And that's really been a benefit. It's really been a benefit that I would not have had if I just kind of stuck in Utah and didn't go anywhere.
Can we talk about the law a little bit more? Because I think still, it is changing now. The law can feel pretty binary.
All right.
And some people would beg to differ. What I mean by that is you go into the law and it's like, I did law school, I go through my hours and doing the grunt work in a law firm.
That's right.
You are very entrepreneurial for a general counsel / chief legal officer. How did you begin to step out of your legal lane to then realize, oh, actually, sure, I know the law, I understand how to do, legal stuff. Actually, now I can have a seat at the table and also have a hand in growing the company.
So the questions that I was asked as a young idiot attorney. So I think a lot of careers, and I think, lawyers are particularly this way. You graduate thinking that you are so educated, you must know things. Then you get asked a question. You don't know the answer to that question. You can't even guess an answer to that question. So, all right, no problem. You've got to figure this out. You have skills, you know how to figure things out. But what I learned from that period in my life was that the most value you can bring as an attorney is not knowing everything. It's finding the answers to everything because you know how to do it and you know how to craft it in a way that is actually, what's the word I'm trying to say, where it's actually digestible for people.
Not jargon.
Not jargon, not convoluted. You can translate it and kind of counter argue it back, but also the other thing that attorneys can do really well that other people can't is they know because we're taught as attorneys to break things down into elements. Step 1, part 1, these 5 things you win. These 8 things you win. This is how we're taught to think. And if you break that down into what does a business need? The business needs these 5 things to not go out of business. Great. See, you know how to think that way. But I didn't know that was what I was supposed to do until people started asking me questions and forcing me to give them an answer eventually. I had to get an answer somewhere. So then I started to realize that my mind really gravitated much more towards the success, the growth, watching my colleagues grow, watching the business grow. what is the sales pipeline? What does the sales pipeline look like? I ask that question of all the CEOs that I am their general counsel for, and they always kind of look at me like, "What?" I've never had an attorney ask me what my sales pipeline is. Well, that's an idiot. Then you've worked with attorneys who are idiots then, because they should always ask you what your sales pipeline is.
Which is interesting. The only way I know why that matters is obviously I've worked for a legal tech company before, and the relationship between sales and legal is crucial.
Is so strong and crucial.
Or needs to be strong.
Well, right. No, I mean, if you want to be successful, every successful company that I have, not necessarily been a part of it, I guess, that has ended up getting a good exit out of it, or not, have failed, has always realized that there was a strong nexus between legal, sales, and marketing.
It's all contracts, right?
It is, but what people don't think about is not negotiating the language on the contract, but turning around and making sure that it actually is implemented at the company. That's where lawyers really come into it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to diminish the skills. What I meant is the negotiating power in the contracts. The contracts like the output, but actually the deal.
The deal itself is where...
If you let the lawyer be on the deal team.
That's right.
Then
it'll
you
go
usually get better outcomes.
A lot faster, and it'll be a lot more efficient. And then the last one, I'll just throw this in there. The last one is, if you want to do this, you must learn to have regular conversations with the chief financial officer. You must learn what's stressing them out, where the money's coming in and out, and you've got to learn how, as you're negotiating for the company, you've got to keep that in the back of your mind to say, okay, that's right. There's that pain point, there's that stress on the money. And I've got to negotiate the contract to make that a little less stressful. So that's a big one.
We have talked before about the challenges of balancing the demands of being a, executive lawyer and also being a good father and a husband. How do you manage this?
I think you mentioned earlier setting expectations. And you've got to set that with your spouse before you go down this path. I am very fortunate where my spouse just said, I don't really care. I'm glad you're happy. I don't really care, but that was good because I had to have the conversation with her saying, okay, we're gonna, I've gotten some really weird looks when I've said this before, but it's just the truth. You have to not be afraid to calendar your family like you calendar your work. It's not rude. It's not. You just have to be able to say, hey, guess what? I am going to leave here, you and I, right now. And when I leave, I'm going to run errands for my family. I'm going to. Yeah. I'm going to pick up the dry cleaning. This is true. No, but right? But just for people to understand, it's 11 o'clock in the morning, but that's okay. And that may mean that when my family goes to bed and I've been a good father and I've read the stories, right? And you do all the silly things, I may just go back down to my office. That's okay. So in other words, the only way to make it work is to say, I have time designated to be the father right now. It's literally in my calendar. This is the time. Nobody else takes that time because it's just like everything else. And when I have a meeting for work, my family doesn't hear me, right? My family doesn't see me, so.
How do you switch roles in your head?
Oh, I treat my children like employees. No, I'm kidding. No, it's a joke. No, it's actually probably closer to the opposite, where I treat my work with the same type of mentality as I do treat my family. I don't want to belittle it and say that your coworkers are family because they're not family. That belittles your family. But you can be excited for their accomplishments. You can be really excited when something great happens. You can find so in other words, I guess the way you just change your mindset to say, how would you want to be treated? How would you want to treat your family? How would you want to be treated? And you've got to just start thinking about it that way. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think I learned that a few years ago, where my approach to leadership and management was to care more about the person than the work.
Right.
And by caring about the person and what they wanted to achieve in their life, the work was usually always great.
And it was great, and it got done.
And they
right. And so,
were happy.
Yeah.
And then that's very easy to manage.
The first, I remember when I started my job at NCLAUS, I was chief legal officer there for a while, and I remember the first time I sat down with my team, they had prepared, and they were so prepared. They had prepared this whole presentation, and it was outlining, here's everybody's name, their title, their responsibilities, and they thought that they had become very prepared for that first meeting with their new boss. And I said, I don't really want to talk about any of that. I really want to know, where do you want to go? What are you looking to get out of this? Because then we can build something around that. We can take everything that you did prepare and we can actually craft it into what you just talked to me about. So you find value in anything that you're doing here. The best way to get things out of employees is to make them feel that they get value out of going to work, and then they will give you something. So. And
they're able to contribute something that is awesome.
Yeah, that's right. And they feel so great about it, right? And yeah, they want to go home and tell their family, I did something of value today. So.
And also I was seen for being a human rather than a number on a spreadsheet.
Well, I don't really get where that, maybe in massive corporations, like that, I understand you need to organize it, but I don't really get that at all. I think you don't need to do that.
In one of the articles we wrote about you a really long time ago, you said something like,
oh dear.
In order to be the husband that my wife wanted and married, and the father that my kids need, we did away with gender roles in the family.
Yes.
Because you're like, look, we're a household. The reality is lots of things need to be done. Whether you're 6 or a woman or a man or otherwise.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No.
Just stuff's got to get done.
You have to get it done.
So can you just talk a little bit about what that actually looks like in reality, and I guess the gift that's been for your family?
Sure. So in reality, that has looked at what I call just fierce transparency, where I've had to say, I just do not enjoy cooking. If you want me to be in charge of the food, the answer is yes, because we have to eat. So there it goes back to that. Yeah. There's no role here, but I hate it. So I will go get food.
You like pizza?
No, exactly. I will go do it, right? And even if you say, I don't want pizza, I want something random, great. The car works, my credit card works, we're gonna go get it. Yeah. So the way that you do it is you have to just be very blatant about what makes you happy, what you can contribute without feeling like it's a burden. Now we have 2 children. Guess what? One puts one to bed, one puts the other to bed. And you know what? Sometimes I successfully get one to bed way before she does. Yep. It has nothing to do with anything, nothing to do with gender roles or you know what I mean? It just happens to be that. So you just have to be very, very blatantly honest with each other about where your strengths are, your weaknesses, what you will do and be very happy, what you won't do. So for example, I don't mind cleaning the bathroom. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't care. So if you care, if you care, then just let me clean the bathroom. Yep. But why don't you do something that I hate, like cooking? And we just don't care, So anyway, that's the way you have to do it. You just have to sit down and say, okay. But the other half of that is, when someone tells you they hate cooking, you can't just roll your eyes and get it. You have to say, okay, I understand. That's you.
In my household, we both love cooking.
Okay.
But I love it more.
Okay. All right.
And so, partner is like, you know what? I'm very happy doing the dishes because the amount of joy that this brings you is just like phenomenal.
Is way more than what it brings me. Yeah.
And don't really mind vacuuming. He hates the steam mop. Absolutely hates it.
See, but who knows why? Yeah. But he does.
And I'm like, I will take that one. I don't mind driving this thing around the floor. All good. You've emphasized in the past that the importance of involving your family in the decision-making process and making sure everyone feels heard. How does this philosophy impact your family dynamic?
It creates a sense of false control.
You mean with I think with your 8 and 4-year-old?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It makes them feel like they have way more power than they do.
Okay.
So the downside to this is that you have to put people back in their place sometimes because they're not in charge, right? And I do laugh about this all the time because I do say that my wife and I have this very equal balance in the home, but she's in charge. And why do I say that? Because everybody cares about her feelings more. So she's in charge. So the dynamic is once you've clearly set this up, and you have to be ready that people will embrace you. If you give people a taste of freedom, they will take a mile. If you give them 1 inch of freedom, they'll take a mile out of it. And that's with adults, children, everybody. That's okay. You just have to let people know where the boundary is. You've crossed it, and then you got to reset expectations again.
You talked about teaching your kids skills they'll need in life. What are some of the key lessons you've tried to impart in them and that will help them balance their own lives in the future?
Leaning in hard to what you believe, because it will guide you into your decisions that you have to make when they're hard. I said life is about work, life is about, so it is. But it doesn't mean it isn't joyful, it doesn't mean it isn't happy. You have to lean into what you know is true. You have to lean into what is good. And the complicated, difficult stuff will just take care of itself. It will just happen.
I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions now. What, in your opinion, is the most underrated fruit or vegetable?
Underrated?
Yeah.
Dragon fruit.
Oh, true. Yep.
Yeah.
Worst meal that your parents made you eat?
Olive loaf.
Do you have a vegetable garden?
At the moment, no, but I have.
Okay.
I have and I enjoy it.
What word describes your life? Are you going to say bountiful, living in Bountiful?
Which would be amazing if I could say it. In fact, that's a t-shirt I think we need to make now. My bountiful life in Bountiful. What word describes my life? Organized chaos.
What are you most proud of?
My family. Easily.
Do you have any principles that you live by?
Faith. I'm strong believer that faith in something more than yourself will take you a long way.
What is one thing that has really mattered that maybe you didn't realize mattered at the time?
Service, yeah.
And then what is something that you thought mattered but realized didn't?
Corporate ladder. Corporate ladder doesn't matter at all.
Is there anything else you want to say to our audience?
I hope that people will listen to this, but more so listen to the message you're trying to bring here and realize that you can be happy. It's not that hard, but you must be intentional.
Thank you, Adam, for sharing
you.
your journey insights for the Bountiful Podcast. If you like this episode or learn something from it, please share it with your friends, family, whoever. Our season is filled with extraordinary guests from diverse backgrounds, all contributing to our exploration of what it means to live a bountiful life. We will include all of Adam's information in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.